So this has been a crazy month for Warhammer and Games Workshop. First we had content creators getting shut down publicly, then a massive lawsuit launched against third-party sellers, and now a huge Warhammer content creator has publicly announced that they are leaving Warhammer permanently. This is a creator who has millions of views, they've got a successful YouTube channel, and they create content arguing in favor of Warhammer content creation in the first place. So why the hell are they leaving? And are they right to do so? And why is everyone so annoyed about it? Well, this is Janovich. He is a large Warhammer content creator and he has been heavily involved in the Warhammer fan community. He has made a ton of fan animations, including a series that has gotten millions of views, but recently he made a video declaring that he is now leaving Warhammer forever. However, his video doing so has become really controversial in the Warhammer community, and many Warhammer fans have been hostile towards his video and the claims that he has made to justify why he is leaving. And this strong vitriolic reaction to his video has revealed an extremely deep rift in the Warhammer community. Now, one of the main contentious points that Janovich makes in his video is that he feels that it is currently unsafe for content creators like himself to make fan content around Warhammer. And the reason he gives for this is that many fan channels are currently being actively shut down by Games Workshop as we speak, and that has created a little bit of a hostile environment. Now, this has been disputed by a lot of commenters, and there's even a perception among many Warhammer fans that content creators are lying about Games Workshop engaging in things like copyright trolling or sending out cease and desist letters or simply YouTube copyright takedowns, and that there are no examples of this ever happening, and where there are examples, others argue the Games Workshop were justified in those instances. But to just get it out of the way right now, while some sellers online are scammers or they're selling copyright infringing material like these, many are not, and most, if not all, fan content that I've ever seen should arguably fall under fair use. And many of these creators are simply content creators that are producing free content online that could reasonably be classed as fan fiction, such as the massively popular Siege of Vrax series that Janovich himself was working on. And unfortunately, it is true that Games Workshop don't only go after scammers, but instead they often try to shut down legitimate content creators who make inoffensive content. Like, for example, fan animations. Just this month, I covered the shutdown of 2 creators by Games Workshop who had the audacity to make some free Warhammer animations online, not to mention that there was also a ton of legitimate sellers recently caught up in a huge Games Workshop lawsuit, including a Battletech YouTuber who did absolutely nothing wrong. I guess he should have had the foresight to not make merch about a mech that's called the Warhammer. And that lawsuit that he was caught up in, by the way, was designed to take advantage of a legal technicality in Florida, of all places, and is still currently ongoing. So unfortunately, this does happen. It's happening right now. Games Workshop are overzealous when it comes to copyright enforcement, and historically they have gone through waves of purging the internet of materials that they deem to be infringing on their copyright and the Warhammer IP. It happened a few years back during the NDA scandal, it happened when they first set up Warhammer Plus, and it goes back even further to the early 2010s, culminating in the infamous Chapter House trial. But it goes even further back than that, except perhaps to the 90s, when they used to be a little bit more cool with everything, and they used to even feature other companies in their magazine White Dwarf. Those times, however, are over, and the result of all these collective purges is that Games Workshop have cultivated a culture of fear in the third-party community, where many creators, including legitimate creators, feel like they could be shut down at any minute without warning. And while this does sound like paranoia to those not involved in fan content, it is not unwarranted. I've been contacted directly by many creators who feel uncertain about whether they can continue to sell products or create fan content about and for Warhammer. And some of them have in fact been shut down by Games Workshop due to the threat of litigation against them. But many have stopped creating content or selling Warhammer adjacent products simply out of fear that they will eventually be shut down by Games Workshop. And this hurts everybody because the end result of it is a less passionate fan base, it means less passionate people involved in the franchise, and it means less cool stuff for fans. And frankly, if you're still skeptical, consider that Games Workshop could allay the fears of creators at any time they choose by, for example, engaging with the community in a meaningful way, such as spotlighting community content on their Warhammer community news blog, like they do for paint jobs and paint schemes, or on their YouTube channel. Plenty of space there. Or they could even feature creators who are selling products like paint pot holders and cool hobby items, you know, those ancillary products and content that, okay, to a very small extent are in competition with Games Workshop, but often these things just aren't being made by Games Workshop, and really they provide convenience for hobbyists or increase engagement in the Warhammer IP overall. I'm talking about products and content that is a net good for Warhammer the game, but Games Workshop don't do that. They do not spotlight these products. Instead, they do the opposite. They hire lawyers to go after creators and sellers, and really, they hunt them down like they hunt down all those children on the island of... Don't look that up, they'll know your IP address. This is indisputable. There is currently legal action ongoing in Florida right now, not about the island of kids. That's not being contested. And of course, that leads me to Alpha Bruvsa and the If the Emperor Had a Text-to-Speech Device series. Remember that series? It was extremely popular, like millions and millions and millions of views popular. Well, Alpha stopped making that series. He stopped making his content online, all because of this fear, this culture that Games Workshop have generated. Now, Alpha was never contacted directly by Games Workshop. He was never forced to shut down his work. But when he did quit making Warhammer content, he was clear in his public statement on the matter that he did so because he understood that it was only a matter of time before Games Workshop would eventually try to shut him down too, like they have done so for many others. And he did not want to have to deal with the stress of worrying about that every time that he released new content. And he did say that he would return to Warhammer in the future and he would create Warhammer content again if Games Workshop ever became less strict in their treatment of fan animations and content creators. He has not returned. So yes, it was the behavior of Games Workshop historically that shut down text-to-speech device even if they didn't order it directly. The situation for Alpha was just untenable, and I do not blame him for leaving Warhammer content creation. There was no foundation to build sustainable art on there. And now Janovich is saying the exact same thing. He can no longer make online Warhammer content because Games Workshop have created a hostile environment for fan creators, and it's hard for me to disagree with that. However, that is only one point in Janovich's video, and there's a lot more points that he makes, and some of those I do actually really strongly disagree with. However, one thing I think everyone can agree on is that you should not host your content on a website that Games Workshop can reach. You should instead build your very own sovereign website, with today's sponsor, Odoo. Odoo is an all-in-one management software designed to meet all of your business and project needs, and that includes running a website. With Odoo, you can build your very own website for your project, business, your 3D printed miniature collection, or simply to host photoshopped pictures of yourself eating at every single Greg's in the world. My favorite Greg's is the M5 Junction Greg's, but what's yours? It's so easy to build a website with Odoo. You simply pick the type of site that you want, you add your niche, choose a color palette or upload your logo, add some pages and features, select a theme, and then boom, that's it. You now have a clean, professional website, and all you need to do is customize it to fit your kooky style. I like millennial gray. And customizing your website is super simple, intuitive, and easy. No technical skills are required. You simply drag and drop blocks onto your website, and you can customize it as you want by adding pictures and even animating them. Look at how easy this all is. So you can try your first app for free right now and even get unlimited hosting and support, as well as a free custom domain for 1 year by simply clicking the link below. And then as your needs evolve, you can upgrade to an affordable subscription and get instant access to 44 more easy to use apps, covering things from invoicing to inventory management, social marketing, and more. So if you run a business or are embarking on a project, Odoo is perfect for you. Check the link below and get your free website. And thanks to Odoo for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so overall, I agree with Janovich. However, there's some points we need to talk about in here because I think he is giving voice to serious allegations in the community that I believe are profoundly wrong. For example, he makes a very serious allegation that Games Workshop have infiltrated the fan base in some way, to the extent that now if a YouTuber is caught sharing 3D printable models on their videos or even in their Discord server that Games Workshop might consider copyright infringement, Games Workshop will go after them and shut down their content, including on YouTube. Now, I've heard rumors about Games Workshop secretly policing Warhammer Discord servers for a while, but I've gotta say, I've never seen any evidence to suggest that it's true outside of the big official Warhammer Discords. But don't get me wrong, Games Workshop employees are probably in a bunch of different fan Discords. However, I suspect that it's more likely that the particularly boot-loving Warhammer fans are the ones to alert Games Workshop to copyright infringements by content creators, rather than Games Workshop actively sending out agents to police Discords themselves. Ironically, I suspect that Games Workshop employees on minimum wage are way less likely to give a fuck about copyright infringement than many Warhammer fans. But still, if you are a content creator and you've got any amount of public profile, it is always risky to share anything that might potentially be seen as copyright infringing by Games Workshop. And this risk is why I always share my directly stolen 3D scans of Space Marines made for 3D printing for free in my Patreon only channels on my Discord, so that if Games Workshop wanna shut me down, they gotta pay the troll toll if they want my hole. So go on, Games Workshop, I might be stealing all of your Space Marines. There's only one way to find out. You could also support me on Patreon. I cannot promise Space Marines. Now, Janovich also makes a really big claim that Games Workshop are intentionally trying to alienate and maybe even purge their older established fans from the community before the upcoming Warhammer Amazon series is released, in order to prevent any potential fan backlash in the instance that the show turns out to be really bad, like the Star Wars sequels were bad, or when Rings of Power released and apparently was really bad and everybody hated on it. I don't know about that last one. I never saw Rings of Power. I saw the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I'm done. That face is all I need for the rest of my days. But this gives voice to a pervasive attitude in the community that fans are being actively replaced, or that Games Workshop dislike their older fans. And beyond the fact that older fans are less likely to buy introductory products designed to get new gamers into Warhammer, I just don't see that. Not even with the Amazon show coming on, I'm not really sure where any of this comes from. Because as far as the upcoming Warhammer Amazon show is concerned, I suspect that Games Workshop assume that it will be good, that it won't alienate anyone, or at least that it has the potential to be really good and not alienate anyone. Because after all, the entire point of this show is to win over people to the Warhammer franchise. So they kinda need their current fans, or as they would call them, their already installed user base, to generate hype and excitement and talk about the show to get new people to watch. This might be controversial, but I don't think that Games Workshop are purposefully handing over the keys to the Warhammer IP to Amazon in order to alienate their current fans and make them hate Warhammer as part of an elaborate cunning scheme to prevent, geez, I don't even know, race hate? Games Workshop just aren't that sophisticated, and frankly, they don't care about that at all. No, the Amazon show for Games Workshop is part of a business strategy to maximize exposure of their brand, to make some extremely easy free money through licensing, and to increase engagement with the game. They don't care much about the fans beyond that. But that has always been Games Workshop's strategy. They have always been focused on new fans and trying to capture new parts of the market, because new people mean lots of new sales, new paints, new brushes, new models, perhaps even entire new armies. The Warhammer audience has always traditionally been a transitional one, and Games Workshop have always churned through their core demographic, and their focus has always been on young boys. They really like young boys, and they want young boys. They want your young boys. Give them the boys. And the Amazon show isn't going to change that. It's just part of the same old business model they've always had. Plus, Cavill is looking after that Amazon show, and say what you want about the guy, but he really does seem to like Warhammer, and he will probably give it his all. Really, my main worry about Cavill is that he plays Custodes, and therefore, how can you trust his judgment? I would be far more comfortable if he was a Dark Eldar player, but whatever, we all have our faults. Another big point put forward by Janovich in his video is that Warhammer lore channels are potentially under threat from Games Workshop as well, because so many of them use official art in their videos, and that could be seen as infringement, as copyright theft by Games Workshop, and therefore it constitutes a proverbial sword of Damocles precariously dangling over the entire Lorehammer YouTube sphere. And in fact, Janovich goes further. He claims that he spoke with someone from Games Workshop anonymously, and they have confirmed to him that many Lorehammer channels, especially the biggest ones, have all signed NDAs with Games Workshop. NDAs that gives them not only access to content early, but also constrains what they can say about the company without risking their relationship. And that's why lore channels rarely speak up when there's some massive Warhammer controversy or Games Workshop get up to no good, because those lore channels do not want to risk Games Workshop severing their NDAs that enables their existence and turning on them and using the justification of copyright infringing official artwork on their channels as justification to take them all down. And okay, well, this is true to the extent that many content creators, whether they have signed NDAs with Games Workshop or not, would probably like to maintain a friendly relationship with Games Workshop. And yes, many Lorehammer channels have indeed signed NDAs. I know this because I speak with content creators, and this is not a secret, and it makes sense. Lore channels get books and products early to make content around, and whenever you do get any product early as a content creator, you will have to sign an NDA with the host company, because that company will always want some insurance against their products potentially being leaked early and disrupting their marketing plans. That's also why there's often review embargoes on talking about stuff early as well. Now, whether or not Games Workshop NDAs contain what's known as non-disparagement clauses that require content creators to restrict what they talk about or criticize Games Workshop on, I'm not sure. However, I have seen previous iterations of Games Workshop NDAs in the past, including an extremely controversial one, and there were such clauses in those. However, I have seen some other NDAs that do not have non-disparagement clauses, so honestly, it could go either way. However, that all said, NDAs or not, non-disparagement clauses or not, I suspect that most Lorehammer channels simply do not talk about controversial Warhammer topics because such topics tend to be extremely divisive and risk alienating their audience. And many content creators online are not like me. They do not want to pull up the rock and look at all the horrible bugs underneath. I'm a little bit of a weirdo when it comes to that, which is why you should subscribe to this channel. Just as an example, Valrak actually deleted his video covering this exact topic because it created a ton of discourse and angry comments. I have never been afraid of discourse, kind of in the name. I assure you, this video will not be getting deleted. But I don't blame or fault any creator who does not want to deal with this sort of stuff. At the end of the day, Games Workshop have a very motivated and passionate audience. Yeah, that's a good word for it. For lots of people, Warhammer is an important element to their identity. They belong to the Warhammer hobby, and they view the Warhammer brand as part of their lifestyle, and this is actively encouraged by Games Workshop, and it has been extremely effective. Say what you want about Games Workshop, but they have an extremely killer marketing department, and as a result, any criticism of Games Workshop, any public criticism at least, is often read by the community as criticism of Warhammer, or even criticism of themselves as fans, and can be perceived as directly attacking their sense of identity. This leads to a lot of drama in the hobby, as many people call it, or as I like to call it, really important topics that often get dismissed because they involve interpersonal relationships and just the slightest bit of introspection. And where would we be without such topics? Smallville, after all, taught us all very important lessons, like how to be in a post 9/11 world. And don't mistake me, I'm not saying any of this pejoratively. I'm not trying to insult anyone. I'm not judging anybody. I can't throw stones. I'm sensitive about a lot of my own favorite brands too, like Command & Conquer and Bad Dragon. It's just a fact of life. It's the capitalist world that we live in, and it's something that the entire wargame hobby has in spades. Everybody has their own favorite games that they're especially passionate and sensitive about. That's okay. However, we do need to have a little bit of self-awareness and try to take good faith critiques and criticisms of our favorite products in stride and actually consider those critiques rather than reflexively disagreeing with them because it's a topic that gets close to our identity.
I don't have how to express myself unless through anger and personal attack.
And I think that happens a lot in the Warhammer community especially. And it's a core issue to a lot of these topics. In fact, I think that it has fueled a lot of the hostile community reaction to Janovich's video. This topic is making people uncomfortable because much of what Janovich is saying is undeniable. And Games Workshop are famously litigious, they are very sloppy about who they go after, and anyone creating content for Warhammer that isn't prepared to go into a courtroom is taking a risk to some extent. How great that risk is changes year by year, but because we are being confronted by all of these kind of negative topics, it can make us uncomfortable. Because we like Warhammer, and we don't want it to be associated with anything bad. Because if Games Workshop are doing something bad, does that make us, as Warhammer fans, bad? Well, no, it doesn't. What you did to that hitchhiker in 2018 makes you bad. But everyone can continue to enjoy Warhammer, sure. I agree with Janovich that it's unfortunately not a great space to be making fan content around, and Games Workshop should basically back the f off a little. And if you don't like that to be the case, then I think that your ire should be directed at Games Workshop, not Janovich. Now, as for Janovich, he says that now he's going to move on from Warhammer and make other content. And to that I say, fair enough. Although, honestly, I feel like Trench Crusade is just like right there. I'm just saying, there's a lot of similarities between Warhammer and Trench Crusade, similar vibes. So, you know, if you seems more open, seems more inviting. I think Janovich might be into that. So yeah, I just wanted to lend my voice to this issue because I think this is a major problem in the Warhammer community, and it's going a bit unspoken about in the broader community outside of just insults. But we all need to take this seriously because it really does hurt the franchise, and the problem will get even more pronounced if the Amazon show is successful and Games Workshop do decide to clamp down on their IP even harder. We need a safe word at this point. Now, I've been covering these topics a lot lately, doing legal analysis of Games Workshop lawsuits, covering creators being shut down, and highlighting alternative content and war games and miniature sellers. So if you like that, then subscribe to the channel. And if you do want to support my work here, check out my Patreon linked below. It's only with your help and with your support that I'm able to keep making this content, because YouTube really sucks these days. I think it's like the AI flooding the platform has completely killed all the revenue streams. So a massive thanks to my patrons. It's only with you that I can do this, and thanks especially to CryptoKev, and I'll catch y'all next time. Bye-bye!